Welcome into the PFF NFL Daily today, furthering our recap of the preseason week one. Sam, let's go through some of the other top performances or notable performances from week one of the preseason. We had some actual football to react to, so give me some names, some players who stood out either for better or for worse. Let's just say notable performances.
Well, you wanted to talk about Kyle Trask,
I did.
Tom Brady. Yeah. Tom Brady's absent from training camp. It's a big drama, big discussion point. And Kyle Trask steps in, and boom, finally starts to show something.
Not going to lie, there were some plays where you're watching number two. He looks like a right-handed Chris Sims from back in the day when Sims was the Bucs QB. Look, Trask had a pretty good day. They just gave him the game essentially. Blaine Gabbert started, had a few nice throws. The Bucs looked loaded at wide receiver. You had guys like Tyler Johnson stepping up, Jarrett Stearns, the undrafted rookie, stepping up, and Trask played the majority of the game. Played really well. Nice seam route. Had a fade touchdown to Stearns. Had a strip sack in the pocket. We probably held the ball a little bit too long, but overall, I thought Trask played pretty well. After training camp reports, I think matter, Sam. Right? Like it matters if a guy's playing really, really well or really, really poorly. All of the reports coming out of training camp were that Trask was struggling, but he looked good. Like he's improving and getting better, and it's a guy that continued to get better at Florida and eventually became really good his final year. So I think that's intriguing for his development and for the Bucs.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important for him to show something, right? If he was coming off the back of these negative training camp reports and we went out there preseason, he looked terrible with an opportunity, that would have been not quite the death knell for his career, but it certainly would have been making it a real long shot for him to ever get given an opportunity. At least this is a step in the right direction. Trey Lance, got his start in San Francisco, ran with whatever was passing for the first team offense there. They didn't have an awful lot in terms of the rest of the starters out there with him, but Trey Lance looked pretty good, especially, in fact, given that they didn't give him an awful lot of the regular starters to get anything done with. So Trey Lance under, a reasonable amount of pressure heading into year two because they're essentially gifting him the starting position. Jimmy Garoppolo on the trade block or on the way out. This is Trey Lance's team, and he goes out there and looks pretty good. And remember, last year's preseason, there was a lot of good. There was a lot of shaky as well, and that maybe set him back last year in terms of what kind of playing time he might have expected as a rookie.
Yeah, you just see the potential in that 49ers offense. We've talked about it quite a bit. What he brings as a runner, what he brings with the big arm. You saw the deep ball to Danny Gray. It could be a scary 49ers offense, man. It's one of those things where even if Trey Lance still makes those mistakes, even if he still turns the ball over too much, it could be offset by the fact that he's a better downfield thrower than Jimmy Garoppolo, and he has that rushing ability both in the design running game and as a scrambler. But then there's also a chance that he does cut down on the mistakes. Now we're talking about the 49ers as a Super Bowl contender and, being very much right there with the Rams in the NFC West and any of the other top teams in the NFC. So wide range of outcomes, I think, for the 49ers, but based off a handful of throws, it's looking pretty good for Trey Lance and the Niners offense. We don't mention running backs a ton here, but Damien Pierce, fourth round rookie for the Houston Texans, he had a really nice game. When running backs get drafted in the middle rounds, especially from a fantasy standpoint, but just from a is he going to play standpoint, you look at the depth chart ahead of him, and it's like, hey, Damien Pierce as a fourth rounder always looked like he might have an opportunity with the Texans. Right off the bat, 90-plus rushing grade by our standards. He's running through tacklers the same way he did in college at Florida. I don't know if he adds enough as a receiving game, pass game weapon, but I think Pierce is going to get potentially the bulk of the carries there in Houston.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a backfield where there was an opportunity to carve himself a big role. And he looks like he might be doing that between training camp and this first preseason experience. So, yeah, I think absolutely. In talking about what preseason means and if you can read anything into it, this Patrick Mahomes guy might be quite good.
There you go.
Throwing that out there. Yeah. I was kind of impressed by him and the action we saw from him in preseason. I don't know. Maybe he's got the makings.
Do you remember his first outing last year? We were fake overreacting to his performance. I think it was against Arizona last year. He missed like 4 throws and looked lost. His accuracy was all over the place. It was like, what if he lost it? What if he just completely lost it on these 7 plays?
he's the classic example of like, just be careful what you're reading too much into in terms of training camp reports, right? Remember, there was a training camp report. It might have been the first year he was starting, where like, Patrick Mahomes is throwing like a million interceptions, like can't go 5 seconds without turning the ball over. This is going to be a disaster. Like he's going to be Texas Tech Mahomes, where the ball is just a free for all every second. And then he steps onto the field in the regular season and goes on like the most absurd record-setting pace for 3 straight years that the NFL has ever seen, right? And whether or not he was deliberately doing that to kind of try and see what he could get away with in training camp, or whether or not he just had a bad run in training camp and was turning the ball over a lot. Either way, it's pretty obvious that, sometimes training camp reports are instructive and they can show you some things. Sometimes they could not be further away from the way things are actually going to pan out. Mahomes, I think, is a great example of that.
Football fans, join the next generation of fantasy football with Rainmakers Football, the first ever NFT fantasy game from DraftKings. It's the only NFT fantasy game licensed by the NFLPA. Now you can play all season for millions in prizes, while building the ultimate NFT franchise. Right now, everyone can get their first full roster starter pack for free. Playing Rainmakers is simple. You buy, sell, bid, and win player card NFTs of the biggest names in the game through regular drops and auctions on DraftKings Marketplace. Craft lineups of athletes with your NFT collection and earn points for touchdowns, receptions, and more, just like daily fantasy football. Build your NFT franchise and enter free Rainmakers football contests all season long to compete for millions in prizes. The next generation of fantasy sports is here. Download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app now. Sign up with promo code PFF, click the Rainmakers tile, and opt in to get your first card for free. Plus, play for millions in prizes all football season while building the ultimate NFT fantasy franchise with Rainmakers Football. It's promo code PFF. Build, play, win. Only at DraftKings. Contest entries dependent on type and number of NFTs held. Eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details. Yeah, Mahomes, I think, is going to be okay, Sam, even in that new look offense where they actually have a fullback. Defensively, it's always fun looking at the PFF grades, small sample sizes, but you see a guy like Martin Emerson, the rookie third rounder for the Browns. He's a cornerback. He has an incredible interception where he just steals it from the receiver.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, he's got a 93.1 grade on his 19 coverage snaps because that play was awesome. I don't know how well we can project that going forward, but a nice start for Emerson for the Browns.
Yeah, just took the ball right away from him. I was really impressed by Travis Jones, Baltimore Ravens defensive tackle. Yeah. Another guy that, remember, it was a while where he could sneak into the first round type of hype and was being talked about in comparison with Jordan Davis a lot. And obviously Davis ends up going sky high. Travis Jones slips, goes to the Ravens. And we were saying at the time, like, that's just such a perfect landing spot for him, because this is a team that knows what to do with, big bodied, unusual throwback style of defensive linemen. They've had a ton of those guys. They've got a good track record of them. And Travis Jones, looked like a problem for opposing offenses. Like, he made a bunch of plays. He also showed that, like, he's way more nimble and kind of between the tackles athletic than people give him credit for. And I think he looks like he's going to be a good player for the Ravens.
Yeah, again, the Ravens, I think, could have an incredible draft. And, their first round pick, Kyle Hamilton, he missed 3 tackles the other night. Now, one of them, pretty ugly. Other ones along the sideline, he's kind of, diving around, a little reckless or whatever. I think he's going to be okay. But those are the other interesting performances. You see a Kyle Hamilton, the early grade is not great because of those 3 missed tackles. Something for him to clean up. The other safety that I really liked in this draft was Jaquan Brisker of the Bears. He was with the starters for the Bears, so we did see Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And Brisker is another one of those guys where it's not always about the production in the preseason. It's about how did a guy do it, right? So Brisker had a couple negative plays in there, but also had some nice plays, had a run stop, and also got in there to make a nice little pass breakup so that I could keep my positive vibes on Brisker, because I think he's going to be good. So I'm going to focus on the positive there. But starting, in the starting lineup as a second rounder, playing with the Bears first teamers, like what Brisker is going to bring to the table to the Bears. And I still think Kyle Hamilton's going to be okay, despite a poor PFF grade in round 1, to go with Travis Jones, who was awesome for the Ravens in his debut. You
know how many tackles Kyle Hamilton missed last season at Notre Dame?
Probably about the same amount.
2.
Two
of them.
I'm going to say that's
in that game.
I'm going to say that's not going to continue with Kyle Hamilton and those 3 missed tackles here in the debut.
Yeah, I mean, we
Anything
saw,
else?
elsewhere we saw Kyle Hamilton's range and the kind of impact that he can have on the positive end in that defense. The grade isn't going to show it because of those missed tackles, but like I say, 2 missed tackles last season, 3 in however many snaps it was in that game. I wouldn't worry about that too much.
They're all tiny sample sizes, but it's nice to just see positive plays from players around the league. So keep up with all the PFF grades over at pff.com. We're grading every single player on every play during the preseason. Stick with us at the PFF NFL podcast with much more preseason action. Who stood out to you in week 1 of the PFF or the NFL preseason? It's PFF NFL.